Have you ever wondered what really happens to your brain after you masturbate? Most people are familiar with the pleasure it brings, but the truth is, there's a lot more going on in your brain than just a momentary high. The reality is, the effects on your mind are much more complex, and it's not what you think. After you orgasm, there are chemical reactions happening that could impact your focus, energy, and even your mood, sometimes in ways you may not even realize. Whether you're someone who indulges frequently or occasionally, understanding the impact it has on your brain is crucial for your overall well-being. The connection between masturbation and brain health isn't widely discussed, but it should be. In this video, we're going to dive into the surprising science behind what happens to your brain after you masturbate. I'll reveal some shocking truths that most people never consider. By the end, you'll understand the deep, often hidden impact it has on your brain and what you can do to improve your mental clarity, motivation, and overall mental health. Stick with me, because these insights might just change the way you think about this common behavior. Let's jump right in. Masturbation is often seen as a harmless way to relieve stress or fulfill natural sexual desires. It's something that nearly everyone engages in at some point, and for many, it's a regular part of life. But what happens to your brain once the pleasure wears off? It's more than just a quick fix to a physical need. In fact, the aftermath of masturbation has a profound effect on your brain, which most people fail to acknowledge. It's easy to assume that the only consequence is feeling either satisfied or at times guilty, but the reality is, there's a much more complex and hidden process that your brain goes through, something that influences not only your mental clarity, but your energy levels, your mood, and even your motivation. At the moment of orgasm, your brain is flooded with chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin, the so-called feel-good neurotransmitters. These chemicals are designed to give you pleasure and a sense of connection. Dopamine is the brain's reward system. It's what makes you feel good in the moment. Oxytocin, on the other hand, is often called the love hormone because it's linked to feelings of bonding, connection, and even relaxation. So you can imagine that after climax, these chemicals create a surge of positive feelings, leaving you temporarily in a state of bliss and satisfaction. But the issue comes after that initial surge. While the high may feel good in the short term, what goes up must come down. After masturbation, there's often a noticeable dip in energy and motivation. This is because the levels of dopamine and oxytocin that were released during orgasm are not sustained long-term. In fact, as these chemical levels decrease, the brain experiences a kind of crash or come down. It's a sudden shift that leaves you feeling mentally foggy or even a bit drained. You might find yourself struggling to focus, feeling unmotivated, or even experiencing a sense of emptiness. This isn't just a random occurrence. It's a direct result of the neurochemical changes that happen during and after masturbation. For some, this feeling of mental fog can last for hours, making it difficult to concentrate on everyday tasks like work or socializing. You may also notice that you feel more lethargic than usual, as if your body just doesn't want to move. This is because your brain, after all those chemical releases, is in recovery mode. Dopamine, in particular, is a crucial player here. It's the brain's natural motivator. When you've had a big release of dopamine, your brain might struggle to reach the same levels without external stimulation. This leaves you feeling less driven and more lethargic. On top of the mental fog, masturbation can also lead to a decrease in your ability to focus. The brain, after experiencing such a heavy release of feel-good chemicals, finds it hard to recalibrate and focus on other things. It's as if the brain has used up its fuel for motivation and needs time to replenish. For many, this means that productivity can take a hit, especially if the masturbation happens during work hours or in situations where mental clarity is key. The brain is so used to those spikes of pleasure that it can be difficult to jump back into the rhythm of normal life. This dip in cognitive function is where things start to get a little more complicated. Many don't realize that it's not just the immediate crash that can affect your brain, but the long-term consequences of consistent or excessive masturbation. When you engage in this activity frequently, the brain's reward system becomes desensitized over time. It's a process known as dopamine receptor downregulation. Essentially, the more dopamine your brain gets, the less sensitive it becomes to it, meaning that you need to engage in more intense stimulation to feel the same level of pleasure. This could explain why some people feel the need to masturbate more frequently, or to turn to more extreme forms of stimulation. What's even more interesting is the way this affects not just your motivation but your ability to think clearly and make decisions. Research shows that regular surges in dopamine and oxytocin can actually have a lasting impact on your ability to plan, focus, and make decisions. Over time, excessive dopamine production could lead to difficulties in your everyday mental processes, like problem solving or self-control. If you find yourself feeling increasingly distracted or struggling with impulse control, it could be worth taking a step back and analyzing how often you're engaging in behaviors like masturbation, as they could be having an unintended effect on your brain. Another critical aspect that often goes overlooked is the connection between masturbation and emotional well-being. In the immediate aftermath of climax, some individuals experience a sense of euphoria, but this can be followed by an emotional slump or even a sense of loneliness. It's important to recognize that these feelings might not just be tied to mood, but are also a result of hormonal shifts that happen within the brain. After the temporary bond-forming effects of oxytocin fade, some people may experience feelings of isolation or even guilt, as though they've sought pleasure from an isolated or selfish place. These emotional shifts can be subtle, but can significantly impact one's mental state if not addressed. So what can you do to balance these effects and mitigate the negative consequences? First, it's important to acknowledge that your brain needs time to recalibrate after the release of all those chemicals. Giving yourself moments to rest and recover can go a long way in regaining your mental clarity. Additionally, engaging in activities that naturally boost dopamine levels, like exercise or socializing, can help you fight the post-masturbation slump and restore energy. Incorporating mindfulness practices or meditation can also help you center your emotions, making it easier to avoid any feelings of guilt or isolation that might arise. Another solution is to keep track of your habits. Understanding how often and under what circumstances you engage in masturbation can help you identify patterns and potentially curb any behaviors that might be affecting your mental state. Moderation is key, as is being aware of how your body and brain respond afterward. To sum it all up, while masturbation is often seen as harmless, it has far more impact on your brain than most people realize. From the post-orgasmic crash to long-term dopamine depletion, understanding the full effects is essential for maintaining not just physical health, but mental clarity and emotional balance. The key lies in moderation and being aware of the signals your brain is sending you after each experience. You might just find that when you understand how it works on a neurological level, you can take steps to avoid the cognitive and emotional pitfalls and lead a more balanced, productive life. After the initial burst of euphoria that accompanies orgasm, there's something that often goes unnoticed: the mental fog that follows. Many people think that the physical satisfaction from masturbation is all there is to it. However, the reality is that what comes after is just as important, and it can last longer than you'd expect. You see, after orgasm, the brain enters a period of recovery. It's during this phase that many individuals report experiencing a sense of dullness, fatigue, or even an emotional dip. This is due to the neurochemical changes that occur in the brain, specifically the role of dopamine, serotonin, and other neurotransmitters. To understand this better, think of dopamine as the brain's pleasure molecule. It's responsible for the euphoric feeling you get during and right after orgasm. But once the peak passes, dopamine levels begin to drop. And when dopamine drops, the brain can feel as though it's in a low-energy state, leaving you with that all-too-familiar brain fog. For most, this can be a temporary state, but it often leads to feeling distracted or disengaged from the things around you. Tasks that once seemed easy suddenly feel more difficult. It's not just physical exhaustion, but a cognitive slump that occurs, one that's harder to shake off than you might think. But here's the kicker. While dopamine decreases, another neurotransmitter, prolactin, spikes. Prolactin is known for its role in regulating the body's sexual function, but it also has a significant impact on how you feel emotionally. After masturbation, prolactin levels rise, which contributes to the feeling of satisfaction and contentment, but also can result in a sense of apathy or a temporary lack of motivation. It's almost as if the brain has gotten its reward and is ready to turn off for a while. But for many, this isn't a simple reset. It's an emotional and mental dip that's not immediately obvious. You're left with this feeling of just not being on anymore. This drop in motivation can be significant in both the short term and long term. In the immediate aftermath, some people find that they have difficulty focusing, whether it's at work, during hobbies, or even in social interactions. You might experience a decrease in mental clarity, which makes it harder to follow through on tasks or engage in deep thinking. This is especially noticeable for individuals who have a high need for mental acuity in their daily lives. You may start to feel a bit disengaged, and it could even become frustrating when your brain just doesn't seem to function the way it normally does. This feeling can extend for hours after masturbation, leaving you with a sense of mental lethargy that doesn't seem to go away quickly. But it doesn't end there. This mental fog isn't just a fleeting sensation, it can have more lasting effects if these hormonal fluctuations aren't managed. Chronic or habitual masturbation, especially when done frequently, can lead to a cycle of feeling great followed by a crash, which in turn can start to wear on your brain's ability to regulate motivation, energy, and clarity. Over time, this cycle can lead to lower baseline levels of dopamine, requiring even more stimulation to get back to that high. Essentially, you're training your brain to need external, often artificial boosts to feel good. For some people, this starts to resemble what we see with other forms of addiction. Not that masturbation itself is an addiction, but the brain's dependency on constant dopamine surges can lead to addictive-like behaviors. It becomes a cycle where the brain craves the immediate satisfaction and the high that comes with orgasm, but it fails to properly manage the aftermath. This is why some individuals may feel the need to masturbate more often or seek stronger stimuli. It becomes a challenge to regain that sense of clarity or mental sharpness without the help of the high that comes with masturbation. Interestingly, there's also a link between brain fog and the connection between sexual activity and the release of oxytocin. Oxytocin, sometimes referred to as the bonding hormone, is released during intimate moments, including masturbation. While this is great for creating feelings of emotional connection and calm, too much oxytocin can sometimes leave people feeling a little too relaxed, as if they've had their emotional fill for the day. That sense of well-being you feel after orgasm can be great in the moment, but once it fades, you're left with this lingering calm that might make it hard to focus or stay motivated. This relationship between sexual activity and the brain's ability to focus is also significant for individuals who engage in masturbation as a regular form of stress relief. While it's true that masturbation can be a way to relax and unwind, if it becomes the primary method of stress relief, it can actually hinder the brain's ability to stay sharp. The problem is that masturbation offers a quick temporary fix to stress, but doesn't equip you with the long-term tools needed to manage it effectively. You might feel better for a while, but once the high fades, the brain's ability to handle future stress without turning to masturbation becomes increasingly challenging. What's even more interesting is that prolonged periods of stress and the brain fog that comes from habitual masturbation can affect the way you make decisions. When you're not as mentally sharp, you may start to make impulsive choices, sometimes even without realizing it. You're more likely to put off important tasks or be less focused on long-term goals. This can create a cascade of consequences that make it harder to succeed in various areas of your life. The mental fog from masturbation isn't just about taking a nap and recovering, it's about the cumulative effect it can have on your mental state over time. Now, don't get me wrong, there's no reason to believe that masturbation is inherently bad, or that you should feel guilty for doing it. The key is in balance and self-awareness. What's important is recognizing when the post-masturbation effects start to impede your life in more significant ways. If you find yourself dealing with persistent brain fog, a lack of motivation, or feelings of dissatisfaction, it could be time to take a closer look at how often you're engaging in this activity. Taking a step back can help you better manage your mental state and break the cycle of feeling high followed by a crash. So, how do you get out of this cycle? How can you regain your mental sharpness and emotional stability without relying on external stimuli like masturbation? It all starts with a little self-regulation. Engaging in mindfulness, incorporating healthier stress management techniques, and maintaining balance in your daily routines can help your brain stay alert and focused. Additionally, exercise is a fantastic way to boost dopamine levels naturally, without the aftermath that comes with the hormonal fluctuations of masturbation. By incorporating physical activity, sleep hygiene, and healthy nutrition into your routine, you're giving your brain the tools it needs to function optimally without the crashes that often follow post-orgasm. The bottom line is that masturbation, like any form of pleasure-seeking behavior, has effects on your brain, some of which you may not be aware of. Understanding how it impacts your mental clarity, energy levels, and motivation is the first step in ensuring that you're maintaining a balanced approach to your well-being. When you start to notice those feelings of mental fog creeping in, it's time to take action and restore your balance. After all, your brain deserves the clarity and focus to perform at its best, and you're the one in control of how often you give it the rest it needs. In addition to the neurochemical changes that happen after orgasm, another major factor contributing to brain fog is the fluctuation in serotonin levels. While dopamine gets the most attention for its role in pleasure and motivation, Serotonin plays a significant part in mood regulation, emotional balance, and overall cognitive clarity. The balance between these two neurotransmitters is crucial for maintaining mental sharpness and emotional well-being, and the disruption caused by their shift after masturbation can have far-reaching effects on your brain and how you feel mentally. Serotonin is often referred to as the feel-good hormone. It is a key player in regulating mood, anxiety, and even sleep. After orgasm, serotonin levels initially rise, contributing to feelings of satisfaction, calmness, and relaxation. It's part of why you feel at ease and satisfied after the act. However, the increase in serotonin after masturbation is usually short-lived. As the levels drop back to their baseline, it can leave you with a feeling of emotional flatness or mental fog. This is because serotonin is closely linked to mood regulation and energy levels. When its effects wear off too quickly, the brain can feel depleted, leading to those feelings of lethargy, apathy, or difficulty focusing. This drop in serotonin can also lead to a sort of emotional reset. Some people might feel a dip in their emotional state after they've masturbated, experiencing a sudden wave of disinterest or even irritability. In fact, many report feeling a sort of emotional withdrawal after orgasm, which isn't always easy to explain. This can affect your interactions with others, work productivity, and even personal self-image. The sensation of laziness or lack of energy that follows isn't just physical, it's also emotional. You might not feel like doing anything, or even engaging with the people around you, making it harder to be productive or social in the moments that follow. Serotonin's role in mental clarity is another crucial aspect to consider. Serotonin is integral to higher-level cognitive functions, like memory, focus, and learning. So when serotonin levels drop significantly after orgasm, it's not just the emotional energy that's affected, it's also the brain's ability to perform tasks efficiently. In the hours after masturbation, you may find it harder to focus, and things that you would normally do with ease can seem like a mental challenge. Tasks that require concentration, creativity, or even routine responsibilities may feel like a drag, which can be frustrating, especially if you are someone who relies on mental clarity for work or day-to-day activities. This is a direct result of the way your brain shifts between heightened serotonin and the subsequent drop that leaves you in a fog. What's even more fascinating is that for some people this dip in serotonin after masturbation can become more pronounced if the behavior is frequent or becomes habitual. When serotonin drops repeatedly due to frequent orgasms, the brain's baseline levels of serotonin can decrease. This means you'll experience an overall lowered mood, which may not be confined to just the time after orgasm. In this way, chronic masturbation can potentially lead to a long-term pattern of low energy, mental fog, and an overall sense of disconnection from the world around you. It's a subtle but significant shift in the brain's ability to regulate emotions and cognitive functions. But here's where things get even more interesting. While serotonin plays a major role in the aftermath of masturbation, so does oxytocin, another key neurotransmitter involved in emotional regulation. Oxytocin, often dubbed the love hormone, is released during physical touch, bonding experiences, and sexual activity, including masturbation. After orgasm, your brain floods with oxytocin, which helps you feel relaxed, happy, and emotionally connected. While this is great for your mental state in the short term, the balance of oxytocin in relation to serotonin can complicate things after the fact. As oxytocin levels decrease, there can be a lingering sense of emotional numbness. You might find that even though you felt happy and satisfied in the moment, there's a lack of lasting emotional connection after the fact. It's as though the high fades away, leaving you feeling empty or disconnected. Furthermore, the emotional numbness that follows orgasm may lead to a stronger craving for instant gratification. If you're someone who frequently masturbates, you may begin to notice a pattern. You're chasing that immediate high to counteract the emotional flatness that occurs after the release. The cycle can easily become a habit, where the initial reward is followed by a sharp decline in mood, prompting another cycle of masturbation to regain that fleeting sense of satisfaction. Over time, this can lead to a sort of emotional dependence on the temporary boost you get from masturbating, which can contribute to feelings of emotional instability or apathy when the dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin levels drop again. There's also a key factor that can contribute to the brain fog after masturbation: physical exhaustion. While the mental and emotional effects are important to understand, the physical toll can't be ignored either. The act itself requires energy, and during the orgasm phase, the body experiences heightened heart rate, muscle tension, and increased blood flow. These physical responses take energy, and after the release, your body often enters a state of physical relaxation, where the muscles and heart rate slow down. This physical exhaustion can also contribute to mental fatigue, leaving you feeling physically drained as well as mentally foggy. Essentially, it's the body and mind both going through a reset after the release, and the result is that you can feel off, disoriented, and less sharp than usual. Now let's take this a step further. The link between serotonin, oxytocin, and the post-orgasmic brain fog also has to do with a phenomenon known as hedonic adaptation. This term refers to the brain's tendency to become less responsive to pleasurable stimuli over time. When you frequently engage in behaviors that trigger dopamine and serotonin surges, like masturbation, your brain becomes accustomed to the high it brings. After a while, it takes more frequent or more intense stimuli to achieve the same effect, leading to increased cravings and a stronger sense of dependence on the behavior. This can cause a vicious cycle, where you start to feel less satisfied with your everyday life and seek out more frequent sexual release to combat that dissatisfaction. But it's not all bad news. Understanding how the brain responds to masturbation and how these neurotransmitters play a role gives you the power to manage your brain's chemistry more effectively. By practicing moderation and finding alternative ways to manage your stress, emotions, and mental health, you can break the cycle of reliance on these instant gratification behaviors. Replacing excessive masturbation with healthier activities, like exercise, meditation, or spending quality time with others, can help stabilize dopamine and serotonin levels, creating a more balanced emotional and mental state. These alternatives help the brain maintain its natural balance, so you're less likely to experience the brain fog and emotional crashes that often follow sexual release. In conclusion, the connection between masturbation and brain fog is not just about what happens immediately after orgasm. It's about the underlying neurochemical processes that occur when the brain's natural balance of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin is disrupted. Understanding these processes can empower you to make more informed decisions about your sexual health and well-being, leading to a more balanced, sharp, and emotionally stable life. Managing these fluctuations, taking breaks, and replacing instant gratification with more fulfilling and sustainable habits can go a long way in maintaining mental clarity and emotional resilience. Ultimately, the key to a healthy relationship with your brain and body is moderation, mindfulness, and a willingness to listen to the signals your brain is sending you. When we talk about masturbation and the brain, we can't ignore the impact it has on your hormone levels. Most people are aware that hormones play a major role in everything from mood regulation to sexual desire, but what many don't realize is how intensely these hormones are affected during and after sexual release. One of the most notable changes occurs in the levels of testosterone and prolactin, both of which can have a direct impact on your mental clarity, energy levels, and overall sense of well-being. Understanding how these hormones interact with the brain after masturbation will help explain why brain fog often follows sexual release, and more importantly, what you can do to combat it. Testosterone is often associated with masculinity, energy, and sexual drive. In both men and women, this hormone plays an important role in regulating mood, cognitive function, and motivation. However, after orgasm, there is a significant drop in testosterone levels, which can contribute to feelings of fatigue, emotional flatness, and cognitive dullness. It's common to feel temporarily drained or lethargic after sex, and much of that can be attributed to the decrease in testosterone. This drop in testosterone doesn't just impact your energy levels, it also affects your mental sharpness. Testosterone is linked to motivation, concentration, and focus. When your levels drop, you might feel less driven or struggle to maintain focus on tasks. It's as if the energy you had just moments ago is suddenly drained, leaving you with a mental fog that makes it harder to concentrate on even simple tasks. This is a subtle yet powerful shift in brain function, and it can be one of the reasons you find it harder to think clearly or stay motivated after masturbation. But it's not just testosterone that plays a role in the mental fog that follows sexual release. Prolactin is another hormone that surges after orgasm, and it's responsible for feelings of satisfaction and relaxation. In fact, prolactin is the hormone that helps us feel satiated after sex, contributing to the post-coital calmness many people experience. However, the increase in prolactin after orgasm also comes with a downside. While it can make you feel at peace, it also dampens the brain's ability to focus and engage in more active or stimulating tasks. This surge in prolactin also has another intriguing side effect. It can negatively impact your motivation. When prolactin levels are elevated, they work to decrease your libido and reduce the energy you have for other tasks. This is part of the reason why many people find that after orgasm, they feel less inclined to engage in mentally stimulating or physically demanding activities. Prolactin essentially puts your brain into a state of rest, lowering your motivation levels and making you feel like you need to take a break from engaging with the world around you. So why does this matter when it comes to masturbation? Well, as you might imagine, these hormonal fluctuations don't just disappear. They stick around for a while, and this lingering effect is part of why you feel mentally drained or sluggish after masturbating. The higher the prolactin levels, the more likely you are to experience the postcoital slump that leaves you feeling unmotivated and foggy. This hormone-driven fatigue can last for hours after orgasm, impacting everything from your ability to concentrate on work to your emotional resilience. On top of testosterone and prolactin's effects, there's also the matter of endorphins, which are the brain's natural painkillers and mood boosters. Endorphins are released during pleasurable activities like eating, exercising, and of course sex. When you orgasm, your brain gets flooded with a burst of endorphins, which temporarily elevate your mood and create a sense of pleasure. However, the crash that comes after this high is often one of the causes of the brain fog that follows masturbation. While the short-term effects of endorphins make you feel great, once their effects wear off, they leave your brain feeling exhausted and depleted, much like a sugar rush that crashes soon after. This can contribute to the emotional flatness you feel after masturbating, leaving you wondering why the good vibes don't last. The real problem arises when your brain gets stuck in a cycle of using these temporary highs to cope with stress or emotional discomfort. Masturbation, like other forms of pleasure, becomes a quick way to escape from feelings of anxiety, loneliness, or boredom. But the reliance on these bursts of endorphins to alleviate stress can quickly become an unhealthy coping mechanism, contributing to the emotional roller coaster of feeling great in the moment and then mentally drained afterward. The more frequently this cycle is repeated, the harder it can be for your brain to find balance, leading to persistent feelings of brain fog and emotional instability. So what does all this mean in the long run? It suggests that if masturbation is happening frequently, the repeated fluctuations in testosterone, prolactin, and endorphins can have a cumulative effect on your mental state. Over time, this can contribute to chronic brain fog, where you constantly feel mentally sluggish or find it harder to focus, even outside of the post-orgasmic period. When your brain is subjected to these hormonal highs and lows too often, it can start to struggle with maintaining clarity and focus on a day-to-day basis. This can affect your work, your relationships, and even your general sense of self-esteem. But don't panic just yet. While these hormonal shifts are a natural part of the sexual experience, there are steps you can take to manage them and reduce the impact they have on your mental clarity. First, recognizing the role that hormones play in how you feel after masturbation is key. The next step is understanding how to balance your sexual activity with your overall health. That means taking steps to make sure your physical and mental well-being aren't solely dependent on how frequently you masturbate or engage in sexual activity. Incorporating regular physical exercise into your routine can help mitigate some of the hormonal imbalances caused by masturbation. Exercise increases testosterone naturally and helps regulate your endorphins, providing your body and mind with more balanced levels of these mood-enhancing hormones. Regular exercise also helps to manage stress, which is another key contributor to brain fog. By finding healthier outlets for your stress, whether it's through physical activity, mindfulness, or deep breathing, you can reduce your reliance on the temporary high that masturbation provides. Another important step is being mindful of your emotional triggers. Are you turning to masturbation to escape certain emotions? If so, it's time to reflect on why that is and explore healthier coping mechanisms. Reaching out to a mental health professional can help you work through any underlying emotional or psychological issues that might be contributing to your behavior. Lastly, taking time to nurture your relationships and social connections can also provide mental clarity. Healthy, supportive relationships help balance out your brain's emotional responses, offering long-term happiness and stability, instead of relying on short bursts of pleasure. In conclusion, masturbation and the brain's hormonal fluctuations are more intricately connected than we often realize. While the physical and mental consequences of these hormonal shifts are natural, being aware of them empowers you to take action to balance your sexual activity with overall mental and emotional health. By practicing mindfulness, moderation, and healthy habits, you can keep brain fog at bay and maintain your mental sharpness in the long run. Taking control of your sexual health in this way isn't just about avoiding the slump, It's about finding a holistic approach that supports your body, mind, and emotional well-being. When we think about masturbation and its effects on the brain, the first thing that often comes to mind is the immediate impact on our mood and energy levels. But there's more to it than just a temporary high or low. One of the lesser-known consequences of frequent masturbation is its effect on our long-term memory and cognitive abilities. You might be surprised to hear that research suggests masturbation can have a noticeable impact on memory and mental clarity over time. But the effects aren't as simple as you might think. Let's dive into the science behind how sexual release can influence brain function and why it's important to pay attention to these changes. First, it's important to understand that our brains rely heavily on a balance of neurotransmitters to function optimally. Neurotransmitters are the chemicals that send messages between brain cells and help regulate everything from our mood to our ability to focus, remember things, and even perform basic cognitive tasks. Dopamine, one of the most significant neurotransmitters involved in the pleasure and reward system, plays a central role in the feelings of euphoria that follow orgasm. However, the way dopamine interacts with other chemicals in the brain can affect your memory and cognitive abilities in subtle ways. Dopamine is often referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitter because it's released when we engage in pleasurable activities, whether that's eating, exercising, or yes, having sex. During orgasm, dopamine levels spike dramatically, creating a sense of pleasure and satisfaction. However, after that initial rush of dopamine, the brain experiences a sharp decline in its levels, leaving you with a feeling of temporary mental and physical fatigue. This dip in dopamine can affect your memory in the short term, making it harder to focus on tasks or remember important details. In the days following frequent orgasms, you might find yourself struggling to recall information or feeling mentally foggy as your brain attempts to restore balance. But the effects of masturbation on memory and cognitive function go beyond dopamine. Another important player in this equation is cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol is responsible for triggering the body's fight-or-flight response, which helps us react quickly to danger or stressful situations. However, when cortisol levels remain elevated for extended periods, such as after frequent sexual release, this hormone can start to impair cognitive function, particularly memory retention. Studies have shown that chronic stress, marked by persistently high cortisol levels, can interfere with the hippocampus, the area of the brain responsible for forming and storing memories. This is where the connection between masturbation and memory becomes clearer. Excessive masturbation can increase cortisol levels, leading to memory problems and difficulty concentrating. Think about the times when you've had a stressful day or were dealing with emotional turmoil, and how that affects your ability to think clearly. When stress and cortisol are in play, it's much harder to focus, process information, and retain what you've learned. Similarly, excessive masturbation can contribute to a heightened stress response, which over time can wear down your brain's ability to form new memories and recall important details. One area where this effect becomes particularly noticeable is in learning and productivity. When your brain is constantly experiencing hormonal fluctuations, especially the drops in dopamine and spikes in cortisol, it becomes harder to stay mentally sharp. This is why you might notice that after masturbating, it's more difficult to focus on work, study, or even engage in meaningful conversations. If masturbation becomes a frequent activity, this cycle of hormonal highs and lows can interfere with your ability to perform cognitively demanding tasks. Over time, it may even impact your long-term memory, making it more difficult to retain new information or recall things you've learned in the past. While these effects might seem alarming, it's important to remember that they are not permanent. Your brain is incredibly adaptable and capable of restoring balance. The key to maintaining cognitive clarity and memory function lies in moderation and mindfulness. You can still enjoy a healthy sexual life while taking steps to protect your brain's long-term health. One of the most effective ways to counteract the cognitive effects of frequent masturbation is by implementing lifestyle changes that support brain health. Regular physical exercise is one of the best ways to boost dopamine production and maintain a healthy cortisol balance. Exercise has been shown to improve memory, learning, and overall cognitive function by increasing blood flow to the brain and stimulating the production of neurotrophic factors, which help promote the growth of new brain cells. Whether it's a daily walk, a session of yoga, or a more intense workout, making physical activity a regular part of your routine will have a profound impact on your mental clarity and memory. Another powerful tool for improving cognitive function is mindfulness. Engaging in mindfulness practices, such as meditation or deep breathing exercises, can help lower cortisol levels, reduce stress, and improve focus and concentration. Mindfulness encourages you to stay present and aware, reducing the mental fog that often accompanies hormonal fluctuations. By incorporating mindfulness techniques into your daily routine, you can enhance your memory, reduce anxiety, and keep your mind sharp even in the face of challenging moments. Sleep is another crucial component in preserving cognitive function. Sleep deprivation can exacerbate the effects of stress and make it even harder for your brain to recover from the hormonal swings caused by masturbation. Getting enough quality sleep each night is essential for memory consolidation and mental clarity. During sleep, the brain processes and stores information, strengthening the connections that form new memories. Without sufficient rest, your brain will struggle to retain and recall information effectively. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night to give your brain the opportunity to repair itself and maintain optimal cognitive function. In addition to these lifestyle changes, it's also helpful to manage your emotional health. Masturbation can sometimes serve as a coping mechanism for stress, loneliness, or emotional discomfort. If you find that you're using masturbation as a way to deal with emotional or psychological issues, it's worth exploring other, healthier ways to manage those emotions. Therapy, social support, and engaging in fulfilling activities can help you navigate emotional challenges without relying on sexual release as a primary coping strategy. By recognizing the impact that masturbation can have on your memory and cognitive function, you're better equipped to take proactive steps toward preserving your brain's health. While occasional release is normal and even beneficial for most people, frequent or compulsive masturbation can interfere with your ability to think clearly, concentrate, and retain information. If you're experiencing memory difficulties or cognitive decline, consider evaluating your sexual habits and making changes that promote a healthy balance. The bottom line is that masturbation, like anything else, can have both positive and negative effects on your brain. The key is to strike a balance that supports both your physical and mental well-being. By making lifestyle adjustments, focusing on moderation, and prioritizing brain health, you can continue to enjoy a healthy sex life without sacrificing your cognitive function or memory. Pay attention to how your body responds to these hormonal fluctuations, and make the necessary changes to ensure that your mind remains sharp and focused for years to come. When it comes to the effects of masturbation on your brain, there's one key aspect that most people tend to overlook: the long-term impact on your emotional regulation and mental stability. Often we think of the immediate satisfaction that comes from sexual release, but the underlying effects on our mental state can be much more profound, especially when it becomes a frequent or habitual activity. These impacts don't just show up in the form of temporary emotional fluctuations. They can manifest in deeper, more lasting shifts in mood, anxiety levels, and overall emotional health. At first, you might think that masturbation is an easy and harmless way to relieve stress or unwind after a long day. For many, it's a natural part of life, and in moderation, it can be just that, harmless. But as we delve into the science, it's clear that frequent masturbation can start to affect how we manage our emotions, sometimes in ways we don't even realize until it becomes a bigger issue. The key to understanding this lies in the brain's reward system and the chemical reactions that take place during and after orgasm. When you masturbate, your brain releases a cocktail of chemicals that lead to feelings of pleasure, relaxation, and euphoria. These chemicals include dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin, which are responsible for the feel-good sensation we often associate with sexual release. But after the high, the brain goes through a withdrawal-like phase. Dopamine levels drop, and you're left with a feeling of calm or even emptiness. This drop in dopamine, while initially creating a sense of contentment, can actually contribute to a cycle of emotional instability over time. Think of it like a roller coaster. The high is thrilling, but the drop can leave you feeling less motivated, more anxious, or even a bit depressed. When this cycle is repeated frequently, it can begin to alter your brain's sensitivity to dopamine and its receptors, which affects not only your mood, but also your ability to experience pleasure from other activities. This emotional regulation issue is one of the most significant consequences of frequent masturbation. Why is this the case? It's because the brain's reward system doesn't differentiate between activities that are healthy and those that provide a quick burst of dopamine. Eating a balanced meal, exercising, and connecting with friends all produce dopamine. So does masturbation. However, masturbation offers a quick and potent burst of dopamine without the same long-term emotional or physical benefits that these other activities provide. This imbalance can make it difficult for your brain to find balance, especially when other, more meaningful activities don't seem to provide the same reward. Over time, this shift can lead to feelings of emotional numbness, or the inability to enjoy everyday life as you once did. But that's not all. There's another layer to this issue that's tied to the emotional impact of regular masturbation, the effect it has on anxiety. Anxiety is a complex emotion, often rooted in a fear of the future or an inability to control certain aspects of life. Frequent masturbation, especially when it's used as a coping mechanism for stress or anxiety, can create a vicious cycle. While it might provide temporary relief, masturbation doesn't solve the underlying emotional problems that lead to anxiety in the first place. In fact, some studies suggest that excessive masturbation can actually increase anxiety levels. The immediate release of tension after orgasm can feel soothing in the moment, but it doesn't address the root causes of stress or anxiety. Instead, it temporarily numbs the anxiety and doesn't provide you with the tools to handle stress in healthier ways. Over time, this can lead to a situation where you're relying on masturbation as a crutch, continually masking the anxiety instead of dealing with it directly. One interesting phenomenon that has been reported by people who experience this kind of cycle is the feeling of emotional disconnection after masturbation. For some, it's a deep sense of loneliness or a lack of motivation that sets in once the high has worn off. This emotional disconnection happens because, in a sense, the brain is in a recovery phase after orgasm. Your body and mind are reset, and often, without the proper emotional support or healthy outlets to fill that void, you might find yourself feeling more isolated or distant from others. This is particularly true when masturbation is done in isolation or used as a substitute for real emotional connection or intimacy. The physical and emotional fulfillment that sex with a partner provides is far more complex than the release of dopamine. When you're alone, you miss out on the bond that comes from shared experiences and emotional closeness, which is vital for long-term mental health. While masturbation is normal and healthy in moderation, using it to escape or numb emotions is a sign that your emotional regulation might be out of balance. So what can you do to prevent these emotional roller coasters from becoming a permanent part of your life? First and foremost, understanding the impact of masturbation on your brain and emotional health is key. By recognizing the effect that frequent masturbation can have on your mood and anxiety levels, you can take proactive steps to manage the situation. Moderation is critical here. It's easy to fall into a pattern of using masturbation as a quick fix for stress or emotional discomfort. However, finding healthier ways to manage stress, such as practicing mindfulness, exercising, or talking with a trusted friend, can help you break that cycle. Mindfulness, in particular, is a powerful tool for emotional regulation. It helps you become more aware of your thoughts and feelings, enabling you to make intentional decisions rather than resorting to quick fixes. Exercise also plays a crucial role in stabilizing mood and reducing anxiety. Physical activity releases endorphins, which are natural mood boosters that help regulate stress and anxiety. Just like how dopamine is released during masturbation, exercise provides a healthy and sustainable way to boost your mood without the emotional withdrawal that often follows sexual release. Social connections are another vital factor. Human beings are social creatures, and forming deep, meaningful relationships is key to maintaining emotional stability. If you've been isolating yourself, it's important to reconnect with loved ones. Spending time with friends and family, engaging in community activities, or even joining a support group can help restore your emotional well-being. Finally, it's important to take a holistic approach to your overall health. Pay attention to the signals your body is giving you. Are you using masturbation as a crutch for emotional or psychological issues? Are you relying on it too frequently for relief? If so, it's time to take a step back and reassess how you can bring balance back into your life. By recognizing the emotional and mental impacts that frequent masturbation can have on your brain and emotional regulation, you're already taking the first step toward healthier, more balanced habits. The goal isn't to eliminate masturbation, but to understand its role in your life and to maintain a healthy balance that supports both your emotional and physical well-being. As you move forward, it's essential to prioritize emotional regulation, mindfulness, and healthy coping mechanisms. By doing so, you can regain control over your emotional and mental health, allowing you to live a more fulfilling and balanced life without the roller coaster of emotional highs and lows that come with overindulgence. Take this knowledge with you and implement these changes slowly, one step at a time, to ensure that your emotional health and well-being are always in the best hands, your own. As we come to the end of this discussion on the surprising link between masturbation and brain fog, it's essential to reflect on the key takeaways. Understanding the brain's response to sexual release and the subtle impacts it can have on your mental and emotional well-being is crucial for making informed choices about how you engage in this natural activity. What we've uncovered today isn't just a scientific exploration of the brain. It's about taking control of your emotional health, managing the balance in your life, and understanding how a seemingly harmless activity can, in fact, influence your mind and body in ways you might not expect. When we discuss brain fog in the context of masturbation, we're not simply talking about a fleeting moment of forgetfulness. We're addressing a more complex, long-term issue that can affect your cognitive abilities, emotional stability, and overall well-being. While masturbation in moderation is healthy for most people, it's easy to overlook the emotional and mental consequences of overindulgence. The chemical release from dopamine and serotonin can feel amazing in the short term, but once those levels drop, your brain can experience a kind of rebound, leading to feelings of lethargy, irritability, and even low mood. In many cases, it's not just the immediate aftermath of masturbation that causes these effects. It's the repeated cycles of highs and lows that can wear down your emotional regulation, making it harder to focus, stay motivated, and manage stress in a healthy way. It's clear that the impact of masturbation on brain fog is not just about the activity itself, but how you use it. When masturbation becomes a coping mechanism for stress, anxiety, or loneliness, it becomes less about pleasure and more about avoidance. While it may provide temporary relief, it's important to recognize that it does nothing to address the root causes of these feelings. What starts as a natural, pleasurable activity can quickly morph into a pattern of avoidance, leaving you feeling disconnected from your emotions, your life, and your relationships. This is where the idea of balance comes in. In order to avoid the cycle of brain fog and emotional numbness, it's essential to understand how to manage masturbation in a way that supports your overall health. Moderation is key, but so is addressing the underlying issues that may be leading you to rely on masturbation for emotional relief. If stress or anxiety is prompting you to turn to this habit frequently, it might be time to evaluate healthier coping mechanisms. Mindfulness, physical exercise, and open conversations with others can help manage those feelings without relying on masturbation to provide a temporary fix. Let's also talk about the importance of understanding your emotional state. Masturbation can sometimes be a form of self-soothing, but when used as a crutch, it stops being a healthy way to cope with difficult emotions. The key is recognizing when you're using it as an escape rather than as a part of a balanced, fulfilling life. If you find that you're using masturbation to deal with feelings of boredom, loneliness, or stress, it might be time to reconsider how you engage with this habit. By becoming more mindful and conscious of why and when you masturbate, you can ensure that you're doing so for the right reasons, rather than as an emotional outlet that may leave you feeling more disconnected in the long run. Another important point to consider is the role of emotional and mental well-being in overall life satisfaction. Masturbation, like many other activities, can be part of a healthy lifestyle if it's balanced with other enriching and fulfilling aspects of life. Building meaningful social connections, maintaining a healthy diet, exercising regularly, and engaging in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment will all contribute to a better emotional and cognitive state, reducing the risk of brain fog and enhancing your overall sense of well-being. Life is about balance, and while masturbation is a natural part of human experience, it should never replace the need for deeper connections or more meaningful outlets for stress and emotional relief. As you move forward with this understanding, it's also important to realize that you don't have to cut masturbation out of your life entirely to see positive results. The goal here is to approach it with mindfulness and self-awareness. By becoming more in tune with your emotions and recognizing the potential consequences of frequent masturbation on your brain and emotional health, you can make more conscious decisions that serve your overall well-being. It's all about finding balance, recognizing when your actions serve your health, and when they may be contributing to patterns of emotional avoidance or brain fog. It's worth remembering that masturbation isn't inherently bad. In fact, it can offer several benefits when practiced mindfully, such as relieving tension, improving sleep, and even enhancing your mood in the short term. The issue arises when it's used as a substitute for addressing underlying emotional issues or as a way to escape from life's challenges. By using masturbation as a tool for pleasure, not escape, you can maintain both physical and emotional health without the negative impacts on your brain that excessive use can cause. In conclusion, Understanding the relationship between masturbation and brain fog is about recognizing the long-term effects on your cognitive and emotional health. The chemicals released during orgasm can provide immediate pleasure, but it's the aftermath, the emotional come-down, that can create a cycle of brain fog, anxiety, and disconnection. By approaching masturbation with mindfulness, moderation, and awareness, you can mitigate its negative effects and maintain a healthier emotional and mental state. Remember, the key is not to eliminate masturbation, but to ensure that it's part of a balanced, fulfilling life. By doing so, you'll reduce the risk of brain fog, increase emotional well-being, and lead a more mindful and connected existence. So the next time you find yourself turning to masturbation, ask yourself why you're doing it, and ensure it's because it aligns with your overall goals for health, happiness, and emotional balance.